Good morning and welcome to another edition of the 10,000 Club. I'm here today with Kim Anderson and Justin Hendrick. He's a new to industry agent here at 5-Star. So welcome everybody.
Welcome. Hi, Justin. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Kim. Hi, Tracy.
Good morning. Good morning, you guys. I can't believe today is September 15th on the calendar. I'm wearing 3/4 length sleeves today. It's a sign.
Well, I have my short sleeve on. I'm fighting for summer.
Yeah.
I am too.
Yeah, I know. This weekend looks like it's a nice weekend of weather, so let's enjoy it. So everyone, welcome today. Today we're talking about closings, like really closings. What could go wrong? I mean, it's closing day. I'm sure Justin is a new to industry agent, as I've said, and we've invited him because he has a closings, what could go wrong story that I think is really beneficial in sharing, that not everything goes smoothly, right?
Right. Yeah, I found it out the hard way. Fortunately, I got the hard one out of the way as my first transaction, so I was actually able to learn quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty fortunate for that.
Yeah, good. So so let's talk about what that looked like and kind of like Kim, I mean, what did support look like through that? Who ran point with you on your transaction in terms of help from the beginning?
Yeah. Cindy Beckwith, since it was a transaction in Lansing, I ended up working with her quite a bit. I did speak to Kim quite a bit throughout the transaction, which she knows it was kind of long and drawn out, more than it should have been. So there was that already in itself. And so it finally became, we were going to close. And it pushed so far that it ended up being just a few days before my birthday. So I was like, after all this is said and done, it's going to be a great day because I'm going to get paid for my birthday. It's going to work out fine. And it's the best feeling in the world to close your first transaction. At least it was for me. Turns out the day after close, I got a call from my buyer and she explained to me, yeah, I have a little problem here. And I was like, oh geez, what could it be? Probably something's broken, something's missing. And she said, my house is red tagged. I can't even go in my house. I can't live in it. It's red tagged by the city of Lansing.
So let me ask you a question, Kim. Kim, have you ever heard of a red tag?
Never. I had no idea what that was. I had to call Cindy, I believe, and she said, oh, I know, I just did one of these. So I had no idea. Did you know?
I had never heard of a red tag. So
no.
I love it when we get to learn with you, and hopefully Kim can tell you every time we do a transaction, you learn something new. So that backpack experience that I talk about all the time, this is part of that experience.
Yeah, I wanted to mention something before Justin continues is Justin and I went through one-on-one Zoom, remember, through the closing process. What's that look like? What to look for? He did come prepared. He was prepared. Justin's been a really good student in Tuesday trainings. He reaches out quite a bit to our broker support team. He's got to know the rest of the team pretty well, and he's been in Lansing, so he's talked to Cindy. And we went through my checklist. We talked about the whole closing process. What could possibly go wrong, right, Justin?
Right. And so my market is actually more towards Grand Rapids. So this, as my first transaction, I was like, sure, I'll go to Lansing for this one. But it makes it all that much more scary when the problem is an hour away from you.
Yeah. It's a lot of driving too, right?
Yeah.
So what happened? So you find out it's been red tagged. What was the first thing you did?
The first thing I did was I made sure that I didn't panic because, like you two, I had heard the term red tag, but I had no idea what it was. I knew that it was something that the city does to a home, but I had no idea where to go from there. So I told my buyer, just hold on. I'm going to get on the phone with the right people. I'll call you back and let you know. So the first thing I did was text you, and then I immediately called Cindy.
So let's stop right there. What does red tag mean? I was like, Target? What's that mean?
Right, exactly. I think it can be for more than one reason, but what it really means is that it is deemed unlivable by the municipality that it's in. for whatever reason. In this
So
case,
your buyer's
it
just bought a
was
brand new house. She hasn't even
right.
had it 24 hours and she's just been told, oh, please, you can't
Yeah.
live here.
Exactly. She showed up to start painting and start moving things in, and she's like, "What's this on my door?"
So how did
So I
how did it get red tagged? It's my understanding, did a neighbor call?
So that's what we thought in the beginning. I have not figured out exactly how that process went. I assume it's that when we called to turn the utilities on with the city, get it switched over in names, that they had maybe flagged it because it was a vacant property. It was supposed to be a rental property prior. I don't believe anybody ended up renting it out. So down the line, fortunately, it didn't take as long as I was thinking it was going to take to resolve, but we found out that it was from a city inspection in 2019. It was going to be a rental inspection. The previous owners bought it as a rental. It didn't pass the inspection, and they never had anybody come back out after they had made repairs.
Okay. And that stayed on that account.
It stayed on that account.
Okay, so what'd you do next? How did you resolve it? What were the steps?
So Cindy and I were kind of calling back and forth. We were talking to title, and it sounds like it was something that was a minor miscommunication with the title companies, and unfortunately, something so minor ends up not being a minor issue sometimes. So Kayla was really great at Star Title. She was making sure that my buyer was taken care of through the whole process. Cindy reached out to the listing agent. She knows him personally pretty well.
Okay.
And we just made sure all the parties involved, we had one goal, and that was to make sure that the buyer got into their house and that the tag was lifted.
So did you have to, were the repairs done? Did your buyer have to go do some repairs? Who paid for those? What were the repairs that had to be done? Did they cost anything?
The repairs were finished. So through
Okay.
the transaction, they had repaired a couple other things that weren't repaired. I don't know if those were required by the city, but they could have been. So fortunately, whatever extra needed to be done was probably done through that process.
Okay.
But the city ended up coming back and re-inspecting. They were pretty apologetic.
Okay.
And so fortunately, the tag was lifted in about 2 days.
Wasn't there like an arrest or something crazy in the middle of all
yes,
this or something?
There.
I remember.
I think the city inspector or one of the seller's contractors were there. A police officer showed up. He said, "You're not authorized to be here." And then I was getting phone calls. I was out on a boat. It was my birthday. I was out on a boat and I was getting calls from all these people. And they're like, "Someone's in the back of a cop car and somebody's doing this." And I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do?
Right. Well, I always say that problems present opportunities. And so while they're not fun to deal with, and I know you will agree with me that it was very stressful time for you, but at the end of the day, you cannot learn this business if everything is smooth sailing. So while we would prefer smooth sailing, you have learned just a lot. And by sharing your story today, you are now helping others. In fact, you helped me because I know what a red tag is now as well. So I can help others. So so thank you for sharing the story. And thank you, Kim, for just being there for him and for making him feel like when he walked in. I mean, I'm sure, Justin, that day when you walked in, you felt super confident, right? You're like, I got this. I've checked my closing bell checklist. My settlement statement is good. My 295 is on there. You knew what was happening. So,
and the good news, not always good news, but good news was Cindy Beckwith had just said, I just went through this.
Yeah.
And so that's what's so amazing about connecting with other agents, relying on the support team, whoever it is. The connections in this industry are really important because somebody's been through it. Whether you go to 5-Star Connect and say, hey, I've done that before, like, how do I do a documentum? But you've got the support team here to lean on and trusted agents. So That's an amazing story, and we're glad it all worked out. Did you go celebrate your birthday after it was fixed?
I did.
You did for the rest of the month, or you just yeah?
It was birthday month.
It was birthday month. Okay,
Yep.
and there are those days, right? Right.
Absolutely.
So that's a great story. And Tracy and I were talking this morning about what have you seen go wrong after closing, and what is the importance of the walkthrough? Typically, I know West Michigan Regional now has a box that you can check stating you want your walkthrough prior to closing. Ours has been boilerplate in G-Car. So, you know, we walk through we do our final walkthrough, and we are always looking to catch those problems prior to closing, right?
Yep.
And the reason we want to do that is we have leverage. Once you close that transaction, it's hard to get anyone to do anything. Do you agree, Tracy?
Oh, I definitely agree. Yeah, exactly. The purchase agreement is now closed. There has been a culmination that is the closing, and we are powerless over something that is not enforceable any longer.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've definitely had my share of, you know, as we probably all have, of things that have gone sideways after closing. And you find ways to try to keep the parties happy and get people working together, but it's increasingly difficult once the closing has taken place.
Mm-hmm. So a couple of the examples we talked about, I was telling Tracy, one of our agents several years ago closed, did the walkthrough, everything was fine, closed the property, went over, got the keys, and when they got there, the washer and dryer was now gone.
Yeah.
Right? Within hours.
Mm-hmm.
And so these things happen. And what do we do now? That's why we never stop thinking outside of the box and being creative, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I had a air conditioning unit stolen from the back of the house. And this is where criminals are using the MLS, and they're looking through photos, and they see, oh, there are no furniture in this house. This is now a target house for them. So they came in during the night, stole the air conditioning unit behind the home, and thankfully it was discovered. And the good news is my buyers, because I represented the buyer in this case, were a young couple buying a house that had just been flipped. They got a brand new air conditioning unit prior to closing. So for us, it worked out great. But imagine that every time I walk through a house for a final walkthrough, I look for the air conditioning unit every time. Yes. Now, if this had not happened to me, because sometimes the air conditioning unit is on the side of the house, it's not in the back of the house. But you can bet that I am walking around looking for that unit to make sure that it's there.
Yeah. Yes. And I've in the walkthrough prior, I have walked into a home that was vacant and found the kitchen floor flooded, water, you know, an inch thick. And so the importance of that walkthrough is that we try to get our hands on, but our eyes on everything that's going on in the home prior to closing, making sure that it's in the condition from when our buyer last saw it. It might be 6 weeks sometimes, right? And the other thing that I teach in training is it's just a really good practice when you go pending on a home to hit the MLS with photos, save it in a PDF, and just load it into your loop. Because there are instances where one refrigerator was there when you purchased it, and then you go back and there's a different refrigerator. It's just a nice reference point, right? We want to make sure everything's in the contract very clearly. But if we say as seen on 9/15/22, it's good to take that MLS, PDF it, make sure you hit with photos, and just add it into your loop, because there are times where things get changed, right?
Yeah. Justin, did you by chance, this is a good one. Did you by chance have to negotiate concessions for your buyer on the purchase of this house in Lansing?
I absolutely did.
Okay, I thought so. So you had a little bit of experience with concessions, and concessions are an interesting thing, not something we've seen a lot in recent years, but a little bit more. And I suspect going into the future right now, we're going to see more of them. But we come across this where lenders will say, hey, the buyer needs, 2% in concessions, or they need $4,000 in concessions, we're like, great, this is going to be fun,
Right.
But hey, we got this. We work on behalf of our buyer. We go into it with a positive attitude that we're going to win, and I'm going to get you these concessions. But we know it's hard, but we know we're going to do it. So we get the concessions. So everyone's feeling great. We got the concessions for the buyer. The buyer got the house they wanted. Now you get the call from the lender that says, yeah, the $4,000, it wasn't enough. So now you're $1,000 short from the $5,000 they really needed, because we only asked for $4,000 because that's what you were told. And now you've got this $1,000 sitting out there. And what do? And the buyer says, I have no money. This happened to me this week for a different reason. But our buyer was told in the beginning of a new build, we told her, hey, we've worked with this builder. We've built 2 houses in the same neighborhood, and he does not pay the county and state transfer tax. So you're going to have to bear those numbers, right? So now it's months later, probably 6, 7 months later, and the closing was yesterday. The buyer was short $3,000. So where's that $3,000 going to come from? Well, in our case, it came from the agent, because she was the only person in the transaction that could make that happen. And it was actually a friend of hers. So it's either you have to decide, what are you going to do? How are you going to help this client get to the closing table? Because you are this close. Thankfully, it wasn't a $200,000 house, and there was some margins.
And one of my policies is I don't give up commission early. It's not a practice that I like to do. No one does. But when I'm asked that question, I don't give it up early, because there are oftentimes, as you get down the road in the process, where I may have to throw in to make that transaction work. And if I give it all up early, I have nowhere to go except into my pocket, right? And so I try not to give up, because somewhere there might be $50, might be $100. Sometimes, as Greg Carlson always says, put money away so that you can solve the problem when one comes up, and you can keep your client happy, and you can just take care of the problem, make it go away. And it's just really good wisdom, right?
Yeah. Justin, do you feel like your client's gonna be someone that would send you referrals? Do you feel like in the end she felt like you were? Tell me about that experience. What did that look like?
She was wonderful throughout the entire process, from start to finish, even with the red tag. She had a lot of grace for 5-star and for the sellers and for the listing agent. She was very understanding, and she made it pretty clear to me that she was very happy with the service that I had provided and that 5-star had provided. And she made it pretty clear that, all my friends I'm going to send to you, you've done a great job. So it's so important to make sure that you're on top of things and you give that impression.
And did you ask her to give you a really good review?
I have not yet. I'm actually going to send her a card in the mail. Her birthday's coming up, and I'm going to go ahead and get her a birthday gift along with her closing gift. And I'm going to ask for a good review.
Yeah. Yep. And just, if you don't know this, if you're doing Zillow reviews, they have a link, you can just send it through email. They can click it and it goes right onto your profile. So good job, Justin. You've always been a really good learner. You've shown up over the last, when did you get your license?
I'm coming up on my year anniversary, I believe this month.
Yep. And you were very proactive. You were attentive. You've gone through classes. Even when you were done with classes, you've still shown up just for the interaction and to learn.
Right.
And you did everything you could. And still at the end of the day, there are a lot of things that we just can't see coming. Right.
Exactly.
And so that's why it's really good that, we just step up and start, Tracy always likes to say you're an investigator. I think it's Tracy that says that, right? We did our little, what's his name? Sherlock Holmes, remember? Yeah. And that's what we are in these transactions. Like, as soon as it happens, like, all right, how am I going to get this solved? And that's what you did, and good work on your end.
Yeah.
Well,
one other thing I thought about was, when we talk about closings, what could go wrong? Sometimes it's things before closing, sometimes it's after closing, it's in preparation of closing. But if you've ever worked with a builder, this is a good one. The builder, you don't write the purchase agreement. The builder writes the purchase agreement. And so that's where the minutia of those county and state transfer tax come in. But it's also where your 295 comes in.
Yes.
And you usually are forced to use their title company. You don't have control over the purchase agreement where you're writing your 295 in there, and you're unfamiliar with that county and state transfer tax. So know those things, and know that when you get that settlement statement in preparation for closing, make sure you're looking through it and looking to make sure that 295 is there, because you will pay it one time and you will never pay it again.
Right.
And so a good thing to watch for.
And I know that this isn't the session on new construction, but you brought up a couple things. You know, you said that the buyer puts the transfer tax back on to, the builder puts the transfer tax onto the buyer in your situation, right? So we need to pay attention in new construction. Sometimes they say they'll pay for a certain title company. If you don't use that title company, then your buyer pays. I've had where we've used the concessions and got to closing and there wasn't enough to cover those concessions. And that's always an art, because we don't want to ask for too many and only use part of them or most of them, because now we just left money on the table. Yep. But yet we need to ask for enough. So I work really closely with the lender, and sometimes lenders are hesitant to give you that worksheet because they don't want to be, you know, penny to penny on everything, but they need to give you a worksheet. That's what the 3-day right of rescission, the closing disclosure, all of that. And so I try to, you know, prep my buyers to make sure they have enough funds in that situation. But those are just good pointers. If no one tells you, you don't know to be watching for some of these problems ahead of time, and,
right,
and how you're going to work it out, right?
Yeah. And I would say too, to make sure you use the words closing costs and prepaids. Yeah. Because the closing costs are on the lender side. The prepaids could be taxes and insurance. Yeah. So if you're not using the word prepaids, you could be leaving dollars on the table, just like you alluded to, Kim, monies that are not able to be used in the transaction that were dedicated to concessions because there was nowhere to apply them without the word prepaids. Right. And lenders will do everything they can to use every dime of that. But it's really important to ask questions and do everything you can ahead of time. And how do I know these things? Because I've been short before, right? Like Tracy said, you'll pay the $295 once, you'll be short on concessions once, you'll buy a water softener once, right? Yep. Those are things that we learn as we go. And the beauty of having these live streams, the beauty of having the agents, community support, is that you get to hear other stories and be able to know, you know, a lot more with like being in the broker support. I learned a lot of things that I never experienced. So we have that opportunity. So yeah. And I think that as I'm thinking back on the Justin thing, sorry, Justin, is that the only thing I'm thinking that we could learn from his situation, because when you show up and there's a red tag there, would be to make sure that we've called the municipality and asked, are there any violations at this property address, 123 Main Street? Would you agree, Justin? Were you just going to say that? Did I just steal your thunder?
No, you did not. That's actually a good point. But after that mistake, I will always be calling the municipality. I mean, that's one of the good thing about mistakes is they just make you more vigilant, and it helps you in the long run. But another thing I was going to mention just about lenders, for new agents, don't be afraid to reach out to them and ask questions, because that's what they're there for. You really need each other throughout the whole thing, because the transaction wouldn't be happening if they weren't there, and it wouldn't be happening for them if you weren't there. So it's important for them to be transparent with you.
Oh, that's good. That's really good advice.
Yeah. And on the municipality, also, it's really important when you do make that call, especially when there are transitions from well and septic into public water and sewer. Often there are assessments and there are hookup fees and there are hookup guidelines. And sometimes in closing, I had an agent that closed the deal. The seller said that it was public. I mean, they'd lived there for 20 or 30 years and they said they had public. And long story short, buyer moves in and finds that they have to hook up to water. It wasn't even on the table. I mean, it wasn't even anywhere to be found. And so we just have to always make those additional steps, call the public or the municipality, find out what are the assessments. Is there anything going on the property? It's just a really good practice, right?
Right. And just because the West Michigan purchase agreement has a box you can check for the seller to pay assessments like that, it does not mean that you shouldn't know about them beforehand.
Right. Absolutely.
Sounds like a pro to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, this closes up one more edition of the 10,000 live stream. We appreciate you being with us, Justin, today. I know that you're committed to your business, and we're glad that everything worked out for you. And we're looking forward to the referrals that this buyer is going to give you. And as always, we always appreciate hearing from Tracy Johnson. And we hope everybody has a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Thank you,
thank
Justin.
you.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Justin.
thank you guys.
All right.
All
Thanks,
right.
Kim.
All right,
Bye,
see ya.
everybody.
Bye.
All right. Bye.